Hey everyone, welcome to the Church Planting Podcast. I'm Greg Nettle, and I have the absolute privilege of serving as president of Stadia Church Planting, where we want to help you start thriving, growing, multiplying churches for the next generation. Today we're going to, and this is really next generational, we're going to be talking with two amazing guests on the podcast, talking about multi-ethnic church planting and different modalities to accomplish that. We have Reverend Len Tang, who's the director of the Church Planting Initiative at Fuller Theological Seminary, an amazing man. He's planted 2 churches on his own. He's a co-author and editor of Sent to Flourish, which is a guide to planting and multiplying churches. And then we have a dear friend, Dr. Liz Rios, who's a pioneering Afro-Boricu faith leader, visionary educator. She's from Manhattan's Lower East Side. She's the founder of Passion to Plant, which is a national church planting network, equipping global majority leaders to build justice-centered communities. She's also a pastor herself in hybrid spiritual communities. She leads some Latino efforts. She is truly multi-ethnic. And so I am so delighted that you've decided to join us for this episode of the Church Planting Podcast. So good to have this episode of the Church Planting Podcast. I'm really excited because I have 2 dear friends on this episode with me. Dr. Liz Rios, welcome to the Church Planting Podcast.
Hello, Greg. It's so great to be with you. I'm honored that I was invited, and I'm looking forward to our combo.
Thanks, Liz. And Reverend Len Tang, thank you coming in from California.
Yeah, great to be here, Greg, and love to partner with Stadia.
Let's start off with you, Len. You do all kinds of research. You're involved at the grassroots as well. What are some things you're excited about right now with church planting?
Well, I think kind of the surprising trend to me has just been the growth of the microchurch movement, how rapidly that has grown and become kind of mainstreamed really in the church planting world. I think, like a decade ago, people had hardly heard about it. And of course, there's, Tampa Underground goes further back than that. But I think it's kind of recaptured the imagination of ordinary disciples. So I think that to me feels like the newer frontier in the broader church planting world. So, mobilizing people who didn't think of themselves as church planters and reimagining new context as places to plant microchurches.
So Len, we're seeing that, this isn't something new. This has been, when you talk about micro church planting, in India, Asia, so many places around the world, micro has been the fastest growing movement of church planting in the world. Are you seeing that's informing now the U.S. church planting?
Yes and no. You're right that in many ways, like globally, it's not something new that those decentralized structures, disciple-making movements, church planting movements have been in existence for generations. I think so. It's newer in the West, right? Of kind of thinking about a Sunday-centric, worship building-centric, even full-time church planter or even part-time church planter, paid-centric kind of model. So in that sense, I think it's a fresh expression of what God is doing.
And Liz, what are you seeing? Are you seeing that is it more multi-ethnic? Is it more white? What are we watching there? And then when we talk about multi-ethnic church planting?
Yeah, I definitely see that there's a rise of multi-ethnic women planters, Black, Afro-Latina, Indigenous, Asian American women that are rising up and stepping into this call to plant churches and, that are kind of rooted in their culture and, starting house churches, like Len mentioned, having microchurch movements, digital spaces, everything right now is kind of being explored and experimented with. And that's exciting because I feel like the fear of failure, which was a big thing in church planting, in the church planting world, most people are saying, you know what, we're going to go forward and we're going to do something that we believe is essential for this time. And let's see where it goes. So, but I'm super excited about all the women that are stepping into this space.
Let's talk about that more, Liz. Are you seeing women step more into the space of micro, or is it just across the board?
More, I would say definitely micro. I don't think they go in with the intention of staying micro. But I see two areas: the digital church planting space and the micro church space. They are fully embracing that, and I think that's really important because we've talked about in the church planting frameworks that sometimes the metrics have to be changed, right? Especially for our community. So they're kind of realizing, you know what? Because we are, women of color, or we are trying to deal with this in a multi-ethnic world, they're letting go of some of the things that used to drive them, which was those metrics that really weren't meant for our people to kind of meet. So before, if they would say, 100 people, $100,000 in the bank, and a big team of church planters with you. And now they're like, you know what? We don't have any of that. We have maybe 10 people that are helping us. We have maybe a core group of maybe 20, 25. And that's okay. We'll because for God, one person is good. They're celebrating in heaven for one person. So why are we going to allow ourselves to kind of like try to fit into this box? And that has helped them to step forward, because before, a lot of times in church planting training, when they would hear that, they would kind of already count themselves out and not even attempt it, because they would be like, okay, no, I don't have that. I don't have that. I don't have that. But now I see, not only women, but all church planters stepping out more because they don't feel like they have to meet those metrics anymore.
Dr. Liz, you already mentioned twice digital church planting. You seem kind of excited about that. I was excited about that. What expressions are you seeing there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I myself lead a digital faith state, which was a traditional brick and mortar. And before the pandemic, I actually transitioned to digital when everybody thought I was crazy, but that I wasn't so crazy anymore. And still we meet every Sunday at 6. And I just find that more people really want to utilize, tithes and offering to actually do the real work on the ground and support their community in various different ways. So I do find that more people are stepping into that, and feeling that there's no, burden or this, thing that's pulling them, that they have to meet a certain amount of money so that they could pay the rent. I've seen too many people in the last 6 months, close, because it's a real situation that if you're dealing in communities, you're ministering in communities that are multi-ethnic, that maybe are food deserts, that are mostly dealing with people that are poverty or maybe middle class in some ways. Sometimes people think middle class don't have hardship. Sometimes they do, and they can't afford to give to churches the way that some churches need. And so this has alleviated that, because there's no boundaries. You meet people everywhere. And if you really need a building to spread the gospel, then maybe that's something you should question.
So Liz, this is really fun, because one of the things I got most excited about when we started talking about digital church planting years ago was I could envision the first 1 million person, church that had virtually no overhead, right? Revenue expenses. And what if, regardless of if it's reaching some people in poverty, some people with plenty, more than enough, what would it be like to mobilize 1 million people to say, hey, today we're going to wipe out poverty in this African city, or in this, U.S. Urban community, and 100% of your offerings that you give online they're not going to a building or to staffing needs. They're going to go to literally wipe out poverty. Have you seen any expressions actually doing that, where they're collecting offerings really to give it away?
Absolutely. I think most of the people that I've seen that have started digital faith spaces have done it with that in mind, to be able to. And most of the pastors, they're tri-vocational. They have, they're pastoring, and they have maybe 2 other things that they're doing, so that they don't take a salary from that particular faith space. So the ones that I've been talking to, most of them have said, we want to put our money into the community to support small businesses. So they do like cash mobs. They tell everybody, hey, wherever you're at, pick a small business, meet there, and then support that, or pick a nonprofit, pick somebody that's having local impact, and bless them with the money that you can, so that they continue doing what they are doing. And so for them, they feel that that's real digital discipleship, because they're training their people to go back into the world, not to stay in digital spaces. That may be the way that they grow as disciples, but then they're sending them back out for local impact. And that's been an amazing thing to see. I love it. I love it.
I love the idea of cash mob. We got the new tithe mob, coming. That's going to just do this. That would be very cool. Len, I want to come back to you. Let's go back to microchurch and talk about financial sustainability. What are you watching there trend-wise? Like, are people moving just, pretty much in the bi-vocational, or as Dr. Liz said just now, which I've never used that term before or heard that, tri-vocational? Is that what's happening, or are planters that you're engaged with or watching, are they still trying to gain financial sustainability from the movement?
Yeah, to be honest, I would really defer, to the folks who are really invested deeply, to the Kansas City and Tampa folks, who are on the ground doing that. I'm really for me, it's more like kind of watching a little bit more from a distance and seeing the kind of the growth in people talking about, and again, the rekindling of the imagination of what planters could be, and places that we previously thought, that's not going to work. So that to me is the appeal. Be honest, I'm not too deep in the weeds. Really, for Liz and I, in the work we're doing in the Multiethnic Collaborative, we're really focused around multi-ethnic planting.
Well, let's just talk about that then. What are some of the biggest challenges that people are facing in multi-ethnic church planting right now?
The first one is like this current political moment, to be honest. I think there's a lot of fear and uncertainty, particularly around Latino churches, but not limited to them. Even I have international students in my church who are carrying their passports around now. So that's just, it's not a political statement. It's an actual impact on people and churches and plant. So that's sort of the very present kind of challenge. I think more broadly, the challenge is that when oftentimes the connotation, the association with multi-ethnic church is a visually diverse white-led church. That's what most people think of. And the group that Liz and I are part of, called the Multiethnic Collaborative, we're really wanting to expand the understanding. In fact, we define multi-ethnic as immigrant church planting, ethnic-specific church planting, and multiracial church planting. Yet all three are under this umbrella because they're all interconnected. They're all needed, I think, in a healthy ecosystem, because as long as there's immigration, we're going to need immigrant churches in the language and context and culture. There will be a need for ethnic specific churches that really meet some of the cultural needs. And there's also, multiracial churches that, again, are what most people think about. But a lot of those are really kind of majority culture normative churches with a sort of a mix of people of color in it. And I think the work we're doing is really trying to maybe to reclaim a more biblical way and of thinking and of sharing power, and of creating kind of polycentric models of church use that.
Liz, what do you see as the challenges we're facing in multi-ethnic church?
Yeah, definitely agree with what Len is saying. Political climate right now, very polarizing, as you already know. Everybody knows. But also, to go back to what we were talking about earlier, which I believe is just the funding issue, right? I think the funding system, the way that we have always done it, favors the familiar. So if you are always, saying what people want to hear, and unfortunately, we do feel in multi-ethnic spaces that power sharing is kind of like theologically misunderstood. A lot of people just are not willing to do that, or willing to do that up to a limit. But funding is the biggest thing in multi-ethnic church planting, which we in the Multiethnic Collaborative been trying to figure out as well. Like, how is it that we can get people that say that they want to see more of these kind of churches actually put their money where their words are, right? Because at the end of the day, you still need that. And even for digital spaces, because even though we eliminate a big part of funding needs because you don't have real estate per se, you still have to fund it with all the different things to make digital happen. So I think the pipeline is really narrow. And honestly, right now, in this day and age, the money is political too. And unfortunately, if people are very vocal about leading for justice issues, or even to go back to what Len was saying, to kind of like reimagining, but maybe reimagining from a decolonial perspective, your money's at risk. And it has already been pulled. I think we're in a meeting, expo, when we had heard about one particular article that came out that a pastor, multi-ethnic pastor, actually he was the African American leading a church plant, and his money was pulled. So I think,
why was his money pulled?
Because he was more vocal about justice issues.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
You talked about, Liz, you mentioned a term there that I need you to define for me. You talked about power sharing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a lot of times, people talk about, sharing power and that we can do this, right? I wrote about this with Danielle Strickland in the book that we, she curated. And I highlighted a particular church planters in California. And it was a male-female, non-married pastorship, co-lead, and it didn't work out. I just found out it didn't work out. And one of the reasons for that is because, and this is not the first instance, this is just one model, that sometimes we talk about power sharing, and I would say, a dominant culture with leaders of color.
Okay.
But it's usually up until a limit, because with this particular instance, what happened was that particular person who it was a white male felt and said that he had a particular perspective that because of that he should be leading.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and so that is where we always come to, that there's a point where somebody always wants to grab the power instead of like, can we struggle? It's not easy. I'm not saying that it is. There's another model in California that I wrote about, Midtown Church, where Ephraim Smith and Susie Gayman and their lead pastor all said, we're going to share this together. So they're all co-lead senior pastors. Not easy things to do, but I do believe that there is this theological misunderstanding that there's always has to be this one person to do everything. And I don't know, I believe that our, true multi-ethnic churches require power to be shared and for all of our stories to be centered, not just one,
Len, obviously there's a lot of challenges that we're facing in multi-ethnic church planting, but boy, first of all, I love all the work that's being done in multi-ethnic collaboration and the group that's working on that. And I feel like, multi-ethnic, I don't think it's a trend now. I think it's actually happening. I think that our hearts are awakening to the importance of kingdom diversity and the idea that we were just talking about this in a leadership collective meeting I was in this morning, Liz, the fact that when we talk about kingdom diversity at Stadia, and we always point to the book of Revelation, where people of every tribe, tongue, and nation are worshiping God. But there's also the Galatians 3:28 picture where, the Apostle Paul says, no, there's no Jew, nor Greek, slave, nor free, male or female. And so for us, when we say kingdom diversity, it's socioeconomic, it's education-wise, it's gender, it's ethnicity, it's race, it's culture, it's all of those different things. And so I'm actually very excited about what I'm watching with church planters that we're seeing today coming in with those ideas. Len, what do you see as some of the opportunities facing the multi-ethnic movement?
Yeah, I think, just the sheer demographic shifts alone, I think are are bigger than most people realize. I mean, in the collaborative, we talk a lot about how 20 years from now, in 2045, there'll be no majority ethnicity, right? We've heard those stats. Even today, current under 18 population is already majority people of color. So, I live in Los Angeles County, which is like 40 to 50% Latino. So that's the reality, that's coming, first on the coast, but spreading around to the whole country. But, the latest research from Corey Little would say only 18% of multi-ethnic churches are led by people of color. So
say that again.
Only 18% of the ethnic churches are led by non-white folks.
Fascinating. My wife and I actually attend a 3-year-old church plant here in the heart of Cleveland, and it's fully multi-ethnic, but it is led by an African-American man. And so that's one, it's just, I didn't realize that number was that low, that it's only 18.
Yeah. So the opportunity/challenge is how do we build the ecosystems, pipelines that equip lots of non-majority culture planters to take their place in this tidal ways, right? This shift happening in our country. And so, like, for instance, the collaborative, this fall, we're hosting a Black church planting summit because we think there's still, there's a place, and some of those planters will plant Black churches, and some of those planters will plant, Black-led multi-ethnic churches.
Yep.
Getting folks in that room to convene the conversation it's not segregating, it's actually empowering the historic Black church to have these conversations, to build some of the pipelines and ecosystems that exist, at Stadia or Exponential and so forth. And even just to give a shout out, to the statement lament that you guys did 3 years ago to acknowledge, hey, some of our pipelines don't, or they don't work for everyone, right? And so as Chris Brooks, who's part of our collaborative, says, talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And so how do we create spaces and processes that gives everyone kind of the opportunity to thrive, using their God-given gifts?
Yeah, I love the way you said that. How do we give everyone the opportunity to thrive in their gifting? Because what we recognized in that statement of lament, where that came from, Len, was that it was, we're grateful for the history. If God hadn't birthed Stadia where he did, it wouldn't be where it is today, right? And so, man, we stand on all of those shoulders and they're grateful. And at the same time, recognizing that it's to give people opportunity. Yep, that systems and processes designed that will actually engage people in every modality of church planting, tri-vocational, co-vocational, micro, digital, launch large. I mean, so everything now, because then you go to education, urban, rural. I mean, everything has to be multimodal now. We use multi all the time now at Stadia. Liz, what are you seeing as some of the opportunities in multi-ethnic church planting?
Well, I mean, I think that the co-creation of opportunity, to be able to sit with other people and say, can we sit and imagine this together? But before we get there, we have to realize that the work is low. To have multi-ethnic churches, it requires time.
Yeah.
And it requires trust, and I know that there's a book out, that came out a while ago about the speed of trust, right? So I think, the opportunities of us to just sit a little. I think we live in this, launch quick, grow fast, away, hurry up society. But I think what we're trying to do in the multi-collaborative is to build trust and take time to unlearn. That's an opportunity, to take time to unlearn and to hold space for all our different, lived experiences and all the different things that we, our stories hold, which, some of them hold some trauma too, and be able to kind of work together to reimagine. And we started using the word reimagine right during the pandemic, How can we reimagine church now that we can meet? But I think we still are in that stage, and I know that a lot of people kind of went back to what used to be because now, supposedly everything has gone back to normal. But I think our opportunity is to actually slow down and to dig deeper. And so that we can do this right, and be able to, plan this out in a way that we can, tap into all the beauty of the mosaic that is the multi-ethnic community. Because we need each other. If somebody got the memo that we can do this by ourselves, they got it from the wrong person, because the gospel requires us all to have our hands on the plow. And I think that the other thing is to be able to take everything, all the challenges that we are facing, and have a conversation. Now, because right now we're on a digital platform. Thank the Lord for technology. Yes, it gets a little crazy, but at the same time, it gives us accessibility to be able to have these kind of discussions and be able to meet with other people that may think differently from us, but that all are trying to, find belonging in community and spiritual growth. And that's an opportunity. So what that looks like, honestly, the sky's the limit. I don't think any model that we can create to share the gospel will be offensive to God.
I love that. Okay. So I'm listening to this podcast. I'm watching this podcast, and I'm thinking, I think I'd like to get involved in multi-ethnic some way. I want to invest somewhere. Maybe I want to plant myself. Maybe I'm a church leader saying, I'd like to figure this out. What are there avenues where I can get involved?
So, Len has his organization. We both are part of the Multi-ethnic Collaborative. So I would say start there, because there you would have all the tentacles to all the different spaces that we're in and that we represent, and all the different organizations that are available.
How do I get that? How do I find that?
Len?
Yeah. So our current kind of landing page is, and we can put in the show notes, I assume,
Yep.
church planting. It's churchplanting.fuller.edu/multiethnic. And there's links a little bit long.
We'll put that in here. Yeah.
So there's links to the various organizations. We do quarterly Zoom calls. In fact, there's one like 2 days from now where we just get together and kind of share learnings, create a learning community. And then, like I mentioned, we're doing this Black Summit as part of the Exponential West conference.
Yes.
That's happening in October. And then we're creating resources. So we get to curate some articles and videos and podcasts with Exponential as part of the multi-ethnic church planting tract that just happened this past March. So, and the link to that is on that web page as well. So those are some of the ways to get connected.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Liz.
Go ahead. I was going to say, and I lead a church planting network. We also do various different trainings, so people can look at passionatoplant.com and see the various different cohorts that we offer as well.
Yep. I love both your organizations, passionatoplant.com. Len, say yours again one more time. Churchplanting.fuller.edu. That's the Fuller Church Planting Initiative, and we're creating content called sort of training diverse planters, that sort of how do we specifically train African-American, Asian-American, Latino planters kind of in their unique cultural context. Well, Liz and Len, I'm so grateful for both of you and for your help in guiding Stadia over the past number of years now, and can't wait to continue to build trust with you at even a deeper level, to sit with you, to reimagine and to move forward with gospel-centric church planting for all people everywhere. Thanks so much for being on the Church Planting Podcast.
Thanks so much, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to the Church Planting Podcast. The Church Planting Podcast is part of the Stadia Podcast Network. To find more great episodes and to see how Stadia can help you start thriving, growing, multiplying churches for the next generation, be sure to check out stadia.org/podcasts.